Hello, lords and ladies of the realm. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka M Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the grand finale of Season 6 of Game of Thrones. We are indeed on Season 6, Episode 10, The Winds of Winter. So grab your parka, grab your little mittens, grab your scarves, anything that you need to warm up, because we are entering into some seriously cold territory. Of course, this is a Song of Ice and Fire, so there's going to be a little bit of every kind of extreme going on, but I shall indeed be breaking down this finale with spoilers intact, so you'd best be warned before we dive in any further. And also, just so you guys know, I did a fun little Game of Thrones music parody, uploaded it just a couple of hours before the finale aired. Link in the description to that. But I know precisely what you guys came here for, and I'm gonna give it to you. So, I am particularly electrified by this episode. You know, my temptation before I start these reviews is always to go out into the world and to see what everybody is thinking about and processing, but I'm kind of just diving into this fresh with everything that's rattling around in my skull, and I am truly speechless, except for the fact that I'm going to use a lot of words to try to to try to express how I feel. But that was exhilarating. I feel like that is a word that I have used in the context of the show before, and I truly do feel that this finale is deserving of that kind of descriptor. You know, going from victory to vengeance, that is kind of the big overarching theme that we're working with here. And also laying the foundation for the future, I would say, was a huge task that the Winds of Winter accomplished in a very, very capable way. I think it was incredibly well paced, to the point that we were even able to have frickin' Sam show up, and Arya, who everybody, like, that came completely out of left field, let me tell you, because I, for some reason or another, I was completely ready to accept the fact that we were not going to see Arya until next season. And I know that some people were expressing disappointment in her arc in Bravos, and they were like, okay, well, finally, you know, what's done is done, but couldn't there have been more? Well, now I understand why, because I was thinking to myself, looking at the preview for this week's episode from last week, I was like, okay, why are we hanging out with Jaime Lannister and Walder Frey and crew? Like, yes, they got Riverrun back. Whoop-de-diddle frickin' do. There's other things going on, right? But I think that primarily the stuff with the Freys came into the picture not only to underscore the rising preeminence of the Lannisters, but also to allow frickin' faceless Arya to show up and feed Walder Frey's sons to him and kill him. I might be paraphrasing this a little bit, but you gotta love that these were the last words that Sir Walder Frey got to hear. The last thing you're ever gonna see is a Stark smiling down at you as you die. Which is just so unbelievably badass and precisely how I would have wanted that to go down. So clearly Arya is back on the warpath, and you do recall that Cersei is on that list, right? And soon Cersei is gonna be on, I think, everybody's list. You know, not only with the Starks, but Dany's coming for that throne that Cersei just seated herself upon. So she'd best be looking out, okay? That prophecy that she got back in the day is still in the works. Contrary to what she would believe, contrary to what her ability to wield wildfire would have her believe, her position is by no means secure. And I have to say, even though this happened at the very end of the episode, it is still just this grandiose, extravagant moment that is consuming me. The juxtaposition of Cersei's coronation, I guess if you want to call it, or she is being dubbed the protector of the Seven Kingdoms, right? And then we see that, like, the darkened throne room as Qyburn is placing the crown upon her head, and there's this solemnity, you know. It almost feels like they are underground. It's very dark, very sinister, very blackened, and I love that black dress that she was wearing with the, like, the shoulder plates. Oh, just freaking unreal. She looks like the freaking witch queen. And then what's interesting is that when Dany's fleet finally embarks from Meereen, she too is wearing black. So I was paying attention to colors this week for some reason or another, and that was something that struck me as rather prominent. So there is this definite Cersei versus Daenerys vibe going on, but of course we have lots happening in the north. We have the Martells, or not the Martells, the Tyrells, and the Sand Snakes and Ellaria, and like kind of everybody was in the episode this week. And my heart is full in ways that I did not anticipate. If I had to break down, I think, my 5 favorite moments of the episode, these may very well be yours too. But I'm gonna say I loved the very beginning of this episode, as we see all of the different characters going through their pre-trial rituals. And so there is a lot of this parallelism that we got to see from Cersei suiting up in her garb and pouring herself a goblet of wine, to the High Sparrow putting on kind of his sackcloth attire, and just getting to see everyone preparing for this momentous moment that nobody understands how it's really going to go down in the end. But it was with that beautiful piano and orchestral theme. It was absolutely striking. It had of course this deeply religious and emotive kind of feel, and it was something that is distinctly different from a lot of other themes that we have had in the show in the past. And so I can still hear that little tinkling piano melody line in my head, and it's in my freaking veins by now, you know, especially in light of everything that's taken place. In fact, the entire first half hour of the episode, I believe, took place in King's Landing, where Cersei got to enact her revenge on a particularly grand and grisly scale. I also, as far as my 4 other favorite scenes go, I loved the conversation between Tyrion and Daenerys. And that is a moment that really underscores the difference between Cersei as a leader and Daenerys as a leader, because while they are both kind of pursuing the same thing, the methods in which they have gone about it have certainly differed in pretty strong degrees. And we see that Cersei's rise to power is it's a solo effort. Of course, she has Qyburn and therefore Sir Clegane, the Mountain, and she has, and well, Jaime too. I don't know how their relationship is going to change in light of her rise to power, but she's kind of alone. You know, she sacrifices her only son in order to achieve that position and to destroy her enemies. She is so willing to completely undermine and explode those who have wronged her, to the point that she gives up her forthcoming generation, her progeny, her beloved child. Whereas we see Daenerys in this moment with Tyrion, as she expresses her fears about the coldness with which she was able to dispatch Daario and bid him farewell. And in the process of Daenerys choosing to name Tyrion the Hand of the Queen, we see that there is this true camaraderie and warmth between them, that they have bonded in this. And Daenerys is by no means friendless and is already forging alliances, which just serves to show the power with which she is approaching Westeros as we speak. I do not envy Cersei's position, not even remotely. But yeah, so that conversation to me worked on so many levels and was so multifaceted in terms of how it represented the characters, these two, survivors of their respective circumstances who have come together in this relationship where one can counsel and guide the other, and where Tyrion, the cynic, is even inclined toward belief. Truly fabulous moment. Arya'S Revenge, definitely up there, okay? And then as far as the other two, that King of the North scene with Jon Snow, which was kind of terrifying because of the callback to the King of the North scene with Robb Stark, if y'all remember that. And then, of course, to that final moment. This was actually something that I predicted in my little Game of Thrones parody, was that we're going to see Dany's fleet taking off, and it is so... The scale of it is so immense as we get to pan back across the ocean and see all of the ships and the dragons and oh gosh, it's something else. This is a long-awaited moment. It is well-earned, well-deserved, and then that contrasted with the bleakness of Cersei's royal affair. So I'm going to do my best to walk through all this business with you guys and to share all of my thoughts and fears and concerns and what have yous. So, of course, it begins in King's Landing, and like I said, the parallelism between all of the different characters who are preparing for the trial in their disparate ways. And we see that Loras is broken to the point of being willing to confess outright to all of his crimes. And the justice that the High Sparrow promises is fierce but fair. Okay? I don't know if fair really came into play in this situation when all was said and done, but, best laid plans of mice and men, am I right? But anyway, so he decides that he wants to join the Seven to commit to the faith and abandon his family and title in the process. And at this point, he is officially marked for his service to the Seven. And Marjorie insists, when her father is outraged at the mutilation, she says that faith is the way. And now something that kind of dawned upon me, and didn't really dawn upon me until after she blew up, was that in my mind, I made a lot of what Marjorie was intending to do by committing herself to the faith. And I think that ultimately she might have been trying to make a power play for House Tyrell. But in characteristic Game of Thrones fashion, that is not something that got to go down for her. That, or she was, willing to commit to the faith to whatever capacity she possibly could in order to protect her family. So maybe her intentions were more noble. But now I'm realizing, what do you think she was really all about in this? Was she trying to scheme on, Cersei levels, or was it just about protecting the ones that she loves and cares about, which feels a little bit fuzzier, a little bit, But what do I know? Everybody blew up, so class dismissed. But anyways, so we see that Cersei is watching everything from the distance. Marjorie's very upset by the mutilation of her brother. The Mountain goes and stops Tommen from going to the trial. And it's incredibly ironic because Tommen chooses to commit suicide because of this. And do you think that was an unexpected intention on Cersei's part, or do you think that she was fully cognizant of the fact that she was going to lose her son? I mean, it would have been a little bit freaky if she played it such that she was expecting him to commit suicide, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I definitely think that she was making a sacrifice there. No question, because otherwise she should have been with him. But I think she realized, you know what, in order for this house to progress, like, my son has been tainted by House Tyrell, by my enemies. My enemies. Mine, not even her family's enemies. Or, well, yeah, her son's side of the enemies, so. Therefore, I think that he was also queued up for destruction as a result, and it just went down a little bit differently. And not in the Bran sense that he is now paralyzed and, you know, becomes a warg and the three-eyed raven. Unfortunately, jumping from a high height does not have the same transformative effect for everybody. But yeah, I mean, the coldness with which she lays her son to rest, you know, that contrasted with Daenerys' coldness at saying goodbye to her lover. Or, well, maybe that kind of puts them on par with each other. I don't know. Lots of interesting character stuff to look at, and that's kind of where my brain has been at for a while. So we also see the Grand Maester is taken out by I believe the Little Birds, led by Qyburn, and Lancel Lannister is given a front row seat to the explosion of the wildfire and getting to enter the underground tunnels and the catacombs of the city, and to see where House Lannister's power truly lies is pretty breathtaking stuff. It's very, very freaky. Cersei even gets the opportunity to torture Septa Unella. I never really heard her name spoken that much on the show, so I apologize if that is an incorrect pronunciation. But she also gets an interesting little confession scene that nicely contrasts that of Loras's at the trial, where she talks about, you know, the things that make us feel good, and then she proceeds to declare everything outright, everything that she's ever done, and then proceeds to turn the mountain into this poor woman's god and savagely ruin her life in precisely the way that she wanted. And it's interesting too that, of course, we cut back to the phrase and the celebration there, where Jaime is kind of poking holes in the facade of Walder Frey, and he is a man besieged by mockery. But Jaime seems to insinuate that that is very much deserved, and while Walder tries to assert that they are both Kingslayers, Jaime very quickly reveals that that does not put them on the same level. And then, of course, we go back to the aftermath of Tommen's death, which is very short and sweet. Now, the two creators of the show talked about how Cersei's children essentially were what humanized her. So now I think it's safe to say that Cersei could very well be the full-on villain from here on out. And then we get to stop by the Citadel, you know, come up for air after all of the complete and utter insanity. And to see Sam's wonderment at the sight of the library in the Citadel as he is looking into whether or not he can begin his Maester training. It's so beautiful. I thought of Beauty and the Beast, actually, when I saw that library. It was kind of a Belle moment. That would be me. I am a diehard book fan and a lover of libraries and spaces of that caliber. So I'm very excited for him, for sure. Now at this point we get to go back to Winterfell, and we get the scene with Jon and Davos and Melisandre. And it is her confession time as well, at which point she has to own up to the fact that she partook in and essentially orchestrated the murder of Shireen Baratheon. And to see Davos's emotional indictment of Melisandre in that was I was already shaking and quaking from the business in King's Landing, and then I was pretty much reduced to a puddle of nothingness because Davos is just he's got a direct line to my heart, and I can feel it there. And so even though the priestess insists that she can be an aid to Jon in into the Northerners and the things to come, the war to come rather, not just the things, but it's decided that she needs to be sent away because otherwise Davos is going to kill her. And so we do not know what is necessarily going to become of the Red Priestess at this point, but I welcome your speculations in the comments below. And so we also get a really sweet scene with Jon and Sansa where she apologizes for not telling the truth about the Knights of the Vale and about Littlefinger, and she makes it very clear that there is not a relationship of trust between the two. But at that point, we also learn that a white raven has arrived, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that it is no longer winter is coming. Winter is here. Just in time for summer, you know. Those of us here in the US of A and everywhere else in the world where summer is happening. But anyways, so I love me my Stark babies. So getting to see Jon and Sansa meet with one another was great. Now we hop and skip right on down to Dorne, where Lady Olenna pretty much savagely makes fun of the Sand Snakes and then discusses striking a deal with Ellaria as well. Now, question for you. I thought that Varys showed up there at the end, but then how was he sailing off with Daenerys at the end too? That's a little conundrum that I'm not exactly sure what to make of, but, you know, Lannisters, they may send their regards, but they're racking up more enemies, that is for sure. So now, this of course takes us to the point where Daenerys tells Daario that it is not strategically advantageous for her to take him on her journey to Westeros, and the fact of the matter is that she's got to strike alliances, and a marriage could be a good way to get that done and to make herself established in this new world. Now Daario insists, of course, that he doesn't want the power. He wants, you know, he wants Dany. He wants to make her happy, and he essentially asks the question, is the throne gonna bring you happiness? Which seems like such a funny question to ask in the context of this show, but, you know, I feel the guy's pain. Dany's a hell of a catch, and to have to watch her as she goes is not an easy thing. It's like, I hate to see her go, but I love to watch her leave. But anyway, so after that, Dany comes to Tyrion, and he kind of pretends to console her, and she's like, you know, I don't really need to be consoled, I guess, which freaks me out a little bit. And Tyrion's like, hey, you should be freaked out, so good on you. And it's just to see how starry-eyed the two of them get when they're looking at each other. I'm not doing any shipping business. I'm just saying, like, there is like a love, there is a thing between the two of them that I think is going to make their alliance most profitable and most enjoyable for the rest of us. The two of them, I think, humanize each other in a very big way. And now, of course, we get to see the fabulous, splashy comeback of Arya Stark. Gets to put her faceless skills to use, which was so exciting and completely unexpected. So that is a kind of surprise that I appreciate. I look forward to seeing her forthcoming adventures, of course. And now, Petyr Baelish and Sansa remain a point of interest and anxiety in my department, because when we get to the point where the Northerners, and Jon and Sansa and everybody comes together in Winterfell to try and figure out, you know, are we going to rally around behind Jon, the bastard? To which Liana Mormont says, hell yes we are. My sister, she is the true MVP. Can she be a series regular from here on out? Because I need more of that girl in my life. Anyway, so you notice that little look that Sansa and Petyr gave one another at that point? I have many questions abound in my mind. And of course, Petyr says that he envisions himself on the throne with Sansa at his side, and like, are things going to be done to put them in that direction? Is Sansa going to be at odds with Jon, or what? I think that there really seems to be a solid kinship with them now, but perhaps there's just enough removal, just enough distrust to where she could move one way or the other. So I continue to be nervous about that. Now, we got to go back to the Tower of Joy, courtesy of Bran, tapping into his three-eyed raven powers, and yes, indeed, it is R plus L equals J, okay? We see Ned finds Liana, finds Jon, and, you know, the scene where the baby slowly opens its eyes and then, like, cuts right to Jon's face. That was beautifully heavy-handed, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So, man, Jon is the White Wolf and the North's king. Getting to see Liana stick up for him in a big way was awfully satisfying. Satisfying and exhilarating are words I've used a lot in the context of this season. It's been amazing. I mean, I gotta let the dust settle a little bit, but I think that this may very well be one of my all-time favorite seasons, right up there with the first one that got me hooked in the first place. So I gotta wrap it up here. You guys have been incredible. Now, don't lose sight of my channel in the off season. I'm gonna be reviewing more content in the days to come. So anything big that I missed or that you want to address in full, let's talk in the comments. I'm gonna be there as much as I can, okay? So you guys, please, please, please take care of yourselves. Winter is here, and as always, I'll be back before you know it.